Welcome, everyone. My name's Penny Richards, Director of OLLI. Susan Tarrant is on her way up here, and she is our Assistant Director, and we are delighted to have you. And she is going to introduce our guest.
Everybody in this room probably knows Tom Nichols and his beautiful wife, Gwen. I just wanted to introduce Tom today. He started as a storyteller by writing children's stories for his daughter. About the same time, he was writing policies and procedures and deployment plans and more, writing at the Tucson Police Department. So he was a writer all around. He kept up technical writing as chief of police of the Lubbock PD. And when he transitioned to the Lubbock School District Police, he found more time to write. Color of the Prism is Tom's first book, and the book we will soon be able to see at the movies, but he has published so many more. So if you think drug wars, serial killers, espionage, and human trafficking make for good reading, you will love his books and want to see his upcoming movie. In writing and community service, Lubbock is so blessed to have Tom as a local hero. Amen.
I paid her well to. Thank you, Susan. I have had an exciting life. I started my police career in Tucson in 1961. And one of the good things that really worked out for me is, even though I did not know it at the time, I enjoyed writing. And as I got older, I enjoyed it more and more and more. And eventually I was able to blend my joy of writing with first with technical work through different police departments I was with, and then later on trying to write for profit. And I really enjoy writing for profit. I'd like to make a little. But anyway, Lubbock to Hollywood, or Hollywood to Lubbock. It's exactly, if you Google it, it is 1,111 miles by I-40, and it's a pretty straight line. But for you or I or anybody in the writing world, it's a very crooked line. It's called trying to write a straight line with crooked letters, and it just doesn't work. And there's a lot of hills and valleys and ups and downs, and probably more than you could ever imagine. Once I got into what I will call the movie business, I don't even want to say I'm in the movie business, but to some degree I am. And
You don't worry about me.
okay, so anyway, I want to go all the way back again, back to Tucson, to University of Arizona. And the greatest college professor I ever had, and this has been over 50 years ago, Dr. Martha Howard. And I would even take classes from her that I didn't need for on my graduation or my degree plan. I just enjoyed her as a teacher. And I'll always remember her pounding this into our head, these posits. And she said, whatever business you go into, this is correct. You follow this and you're gonna have good guardrails. So whenever there is a true posit and another posit that's false, true plus false equals false. And she went through it. Then false plus true equals false. True plus true, of course, equals true. And then she said, the one that's going to catch everybody, but a false plus a false is true. And said, you keep that in mind. So whatever you're doing in your business, that will come to bear somewhere. And so I had never in my life imagined myself to be involved in movie business. But fortunately, we are there. And some days it's fun and some days it's really not fun at all. So I try to keep this set of posits in mind. And these are the people I end up working with on a pretty regular basis. And sometimes it's really difficult. To start with, it's difficult because we're in Central Time Zone, Hollywood, Western Pacific Time Zone, and New York City in the Eastern Time Zone. So just try to have a meeting in which everyone can attend. And the time zones are so imbalanced, that it's hard to get everybody together and to get us all on the same page. But we work with producers, agents, I work with agents. The agent has to work with all of them. Contract administration becomes an argument or a discussion, not an argument, discussion. The screenplay itself is going to become a discussion. Here's a little point. Every time, have you ever gone to the movie and said, I read the book and the book was so different? They're not the same. Well, that's correct. They are different. A typical book is going to be, say, 300 pages, 270 pages. A movie, a standard movie on the big screen is 90 minutes. One page of script, one page of screenplay per minute. That's 90 pages. What happened to the other 200 some pages? So there's a huge difference. And so when I'm dealing with somebody, I sell the storyline, I sell the characters. Then what they do with it is up to them. And sometimes they closely follow the format that I would envision. Sometimes I'm on Earth and they're on Mars, but they bought it and they've paid for it. So much goes on. Music, are we going to use already some music that's already on the market and we'll just pay whatever for it? Or are we going to create our own music and copyright that? Egos. Well, everybody has you have an ego and I have an ego, but we keep it in check. But when you deal in Hollywood, FaceTime is what counts. And depending on which level of acting people are, they're going to demand or request FaceTime. How many seconds will they have of, they're the only face? How many times will they have FaceTime, but it's going to be a group? And then how many times are they not even on the picture? So everything gets discussed. Fortunately, not by me. I have sold it, and they're going to do what they do with it. And then editing authority. And so very, very recently, we're dealing with the director, and I'll not say who, how, or why, but say he's no longer in the market because he wanted to take over complete authority of editing the screenplay. And nobody was in agreement with him, so he was out of the picture. Book publishers are also in it. They will always have some bit of financial interest in the movie. Some of them by contract, some of them are going to kind of plead their case, get more publicity on the screen for their books, book publishing company. And then, of course, as I mentioned, time zones are always a challenge. For Tom Nichols, the people that basically I work with an agent, and the agent has to work with the producer. And the producer is the person that's in charge. What I would love to encourage you to do is next time you go to the movie or you even watch one on TV, don't turn it off when the credits are going. The producer has put all these people in there. All those people are under contract, union contract. That's starting to add up the money, the contract. How many people are, I'd say typically for a modest budgeted movie, probably talking at least 100 people. Everybody's got to be paid. You're going to shoot on site somewhere else. A lot of hotels, motels, gasoline bills and so forth have to be taken care of. So it really adds up, but it's up to the producer to put that together. Generally, what we'll see in dealing with the producer is there's going to be probably one primary producer. So the credits are going to roll. You're going to see executive producer or producer in chief or whatever title they're going to give themselves. And then you're going to see other producers by other titles, associate producer, assistant producer, or so forth. All of them are basically, they've chipped in money. They're the people who are paying for everything to be done. That's the producer. Then the producer himself or herself is the one that's got theoretically total control. Truck drivers, first aid people, EMT, food service, carpenters, painters. All these people, they're gonna be under the control of one person. Obviously, they're gonna be different levels of supervision, but the producer is in charge of all of them. Now, right there are four fabulous producers, which we're not working with. Ray Capra, Ethan Cohen, Harry Cohen, Robert Evans. Then actually my favorite is when the Coen brothers work together and co-produce the movie. And they're always capable of putting in the money, and they have a good idea of who they want and what roles. And they're good enough and sharp enough. They turn out enough good films that when they say something, it's probably going to be in the Bible, and they will do it. So as far as I as a writer on how do I reach Hollywood is once I have an agent, good agents are hard to come by, although there are many of them. The agent has to find out or locate, identify producers. And by that, the agent is looking at the genre in which we're going to be trying to make a movie. Going to ask a few questions about who we might suggest in roles. Going to ask some other questions that's going to help him or her identify the producer. Well, clearly, one of the questions that comes up, and it's coming up more and more often because Hollywood movie making is changing rapidly. As we speak today, the number of studios, sound stages busy today are down 40% from where they were this day last year. That's a huge cut, huge. So the agent has to sell to the producer. Start with who is the author. So who is Tom Nichols? What is Tom Nichols? Because there might be one name, but that's actually a group of writers who are writing under a name. Or that could just be a name, but not, I forget what you call it, but not your true name, that you but the name by which you write. And the question they're asking is, how true or false is Tom Nichols? What is Tom Nichols? Well, Tom Nichols ended up, I'll say just by the grace of God and good luck, I don't know where. But one day I received a telephone call from a person who identified himself with Writer's Digest magazine. Writer's Digest is probably not, as big as a Time magazine or something like that. But to the writers, it is kind of our Bible. Writers magazine, writers publishers, Writer's Digest. And he said, Mr. Nichols, I've got a copy of your book here, Color the Prism. And what I'd like to do, but we only do it with your permission, is we will critique your book and review it. And then we will publish that critique/review in one of our upcoming monthly magazines. But we only do it with your approval. And we've seen enough of the book to know that we're interested in doing it, but we can't tell you how that review will come out. It could destroy you, or it could make you, or it could just be neutered. We won't do it without your authorization. So they sent a contract, we signed it. And about 2 or 3 months later, they published it in one of their magazines. And they sent me a free copy. That was nice of them. So I tell you, it's just with great dread I opened that magazine. I did not know what to expect. And next thing you know, I was about laying on the floor, gasping for breath. I could not believe what they had written. They loved that book. And these are just a few of the lines. He's an author who knows what he's talking about. He has smooth prose. He has convinced us in this story, Color the Prism, of the reality of the situation. It was a very effective closer and had a surprise ending. And then they went on about the ending. And for those of you who have read Color the Prism, it does have what we call a non-traditional ending. And I went back and forth a couple times after it came out with the fellow who had written the article and put it in a magazine. We talked about the ending of the book. And he said, I couldn't believe you did that. He said, but, you know, we tossed it around a lot, and then we thought, what an ending, what a great ending. Thank you. So, when they got published, and it did not hurt my sales at all, not at all. But I had done a lot in my police career, and I enjoyed what I did. I was really, I was a cop at heart, but I was also a writer at heart. And I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And that helped me get promotions, helped me broaden my span of control, my span of authority, but also I truly developed my my knowledge of the different facets of police work. So one of the questions came from an agent, said, you know, Tom, we read your bio on Facebook and stuff like that, and that might be true, and it might be a bunch of you know what. So you gotta tell us who you really are. Who is Tom Nichols? And where do you draw from? If we're to pick up a book by another author that might have some resemblance to your writing, whose book would we pick up? Now you can look at these three books and say, Zane Grey? Zane Grey did not write Murder and Mayhem unless he had a shootout at the OK Corral or something. But I really enjoyed Zane Grey. He just had smooth prose, and that's what I liked about him, smooth prose. And people had asked me before, why do you like him? It's not even your genre. What do you write? I said, it's smooth prose. It turns out that was the exact quote that Writer's Digest used, smooth prose. So I like Zane Grey for that. I like the stories, and he was an Arizonan. In fact, we used to go fishing, and those of you who are familiar with the area on Roosevelt Lake, and we're sitting in the boat, and you can see not the closest range of mountains, but the ones further back called the Zane Grey Hills, and that's where Zane Grey lived when he was writing. Interesting enough, when he started going into the movie business, he sold his property in Arizona and moved to California to guess where? Altadena. So our paths have crossed. But anyway, I really enjoyed Zane Grey for the smoothness of his writing. The Onion Fields by Joseph Wambaugh. Joseph Wambaugh was I think a detective sergeant in LAPD. And he was there at the time that two of their detectives, it was targeted. They were kidnapped, taken to the Onion Fields near Bakersfield and shot and killed. And so his book is called The Onion Fields. He's written many others since then. He was a writer that impressed me, and I liked his style of writing. And then we come to Stieg Larsson. I liked all of his books, particularly The Girl in the Spider's Web. Stieg died. His last book was finished up by David Lagerkratz, and he finished it well. But Stieg writes what I like to write. He writes mystery, mayhem, so forth. They're all set in the Nordic nations, so a lot of long names, long street names, long personal names, but you have to work around that. But he's a great writer. And so people say, well, or when an agent says, well, who can we look at that you might be following in their path somewhat? Those are the three names I give them. So then they say, okay, well, now tell us, who's Tom Nichols? You gotta know who Tom Nichols is. Well, Tom Nichols came out of high school, was a pretty good athlete, and a pretty miserable student. And so followed my brother and went to the Marine Corps, and came out as very, very good with the automatic rifle. I was very good at blowing things up. And I came out with absolutely no marketable skills whatsoever. And Tucson Police Department was hiring, and I was whatever I was, 21, 22 years old. And so I needed a job. I needed a car. I couldn't pay for a car if I didn't have a job. So I became a cop. I never thought I would be a cop. I just never thought that. But once I got into it, I loved it because I found there are so many different fields of police work that you can do. The average person will never hear about, never know about, never care about. But I was inside and I loved it. And then a very great thing happened. That this lily white little girl from Denton, Texas, got a job sight unseen in the middle of the barrio in Tucson as a second grade teacher. And it turned out a great decision for her. And right in the middle of Government Heights, which is also right in the middle of my patrol district. So we happened to meet and we married. But Gwen had a huge influence on me because she led the charge. Tom, if you're gonna do anything in this world, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree. And about the same time, people at work, supervisors at work were telling me the same thing. So indeed, we got married 1 week after JFK was assassinated. We were married in Denton. And she's always joked her that she's 14 months older than I. And so today is her birthday. So, but it worked out well. But Gwen had a huge impact on my writing because truly I love cop work so much. I've probably never gone to college because I loved, people hated midnights. I say, put me on midnights because this is what we'd say amongst ourselves. Real cops work midnights and Boy Scouts work days. And that's the way we saw it. But Gwen and a few brass at the station convinced me. And so I stayed working full time. I went to the U of A, and graduated magna cum laude, went to the FBI Academy, graduated, came back to town. I got sent back and graduated from their executive development program. Came back home, then was sent to Harvard for their Senior Management Institute for Police. So the guy who did not want to go to school, but once I started college, I really loved school. I'd always enjoyed writing. Now I was really into writing. And if you go to Harvard, you will write, and you'll write a lot. One of the great things about Harvard, besides a nice education, is I got to stay in one of the Roosevelt houses. So they have a lot of houses, a lot of big bedrooms, so forth, so enjoyed it. So anyway, the time had come. I was growing up, become a veteran cop. And then it was about 1973 when my police world really made a drastic turn. I think I had learned by that time that, yeah, I enjoyed street work. Street work is not for older guys. It's for younger guys. And there's other facets of police work that need a lot of attention. So I listened to the chief, didn't have much choice, listened to the chief. And the nerd there, that's my nerd picture wearing my very Goldwater glasses. And I headed up the planning and the research section of the police department. And that turned out for me, for being an insane writer, a wonderful job because I got to do my own research and I got to visit other cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, Milwaukee, Columbus, Ohio, different places, researching programs that they were doing. And then nip and tuck and bring things back and then write policy and procedure, submit it to the command staff. And most of what I recommended went through and became part of the department. Finally, the day came when I got one of those calls, chief would like to see you. And I went to the chief's office and he thanked me for what I had done and said, we need to change some things upstairs. So upstairs was the Special Investigations Division. I didn't even have a key. The elevator wouldn't let me up there. Everything was quiet, it was secret up on the third floor. So he gave me my key and I was a lieutenant. And I went up and went to the narcotics section. And we all have a pretty good picture of what's going on in the drug world. Well, after a couple of years up there, I really found out what was happening with the drug world, which most of the public never had any idea. I mean, we have pretty good ideas now because there's so much news and instant news. But I never heard the word cartel. We call them class 1 violators. And so at the direction of the chief, I was to turn around how we did things in Special Investigation Division. And that's pretty broad order. And I didn't really know what he meant. But I went up there in the first few weeks, few months, I just learned how they did things. And at the same time, we'd go through a lot of money. And I became the money man when we we're going undercover. So that is I, And I have to admit that one night I was to go undercover at I won't say where, it's still there, but a nice steakhouse. In which we were pretty convinced that they had counterfeit plates. And I was to try and get in, make contact and get my hands on some counterfeit plates. But I needed a date. Well, I looked around, I thought, who's my age I could take? Gwen, I can take Gwen. So anyway, there we went. And Gwen didn't eat her steak. And I never saw the counterfeit plates, so we had a nice steak dinner. Thank you to the city of Tucson for paying for our dinner. But working undercover was just open my eyes, and this is what goes into my books. Things we thought, saw, listened to, and did. Now, I'll emphasize, we always stayed within the boundaries of the law. Sometimes I thought we were pressing the envelope a little bit, but we stay within the confines of the law. And we started doing large quantities of drugs. We're doing them by the ton, by the trailer truck load, by the airplane load, by the ranch. We did big drugs and we took down big names. And it was fun, but I was keeping all my notes. Nothing that would be evidentiary, but I have all the notes of, places we went, things we did. And I would just touch on one case that I thought was just spectacular. Quentin Tarantino, and we did it before Quentin did, in one of his movies, and two bad guys were sitting in like a Denny's coffee shop. Remember, what's the name of the movie?
Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction, Gwen's favorite movie.
Love it.
If you remember in that scene where the guy with the gun sits down with the man and he opens the briefcase, and all you see is the face of the bad guy, just a glow turn. I did that before Quentin ever heard of it. So we were doing an undercover drug case in a very popular Tucson hotel, and it was primarily for wealthy Mexicans, Venezuelans, and so forth, who come out and go shopping, and they would stay at that hotel. And we're working a very large drug deal. And so our undercover officer is scheduled a meeting with what we just called the main bad guy. And so they're supposed to have breakfast together at the hotel. Now, what the bad guy didn't know, every person in that restaurant was a cop, including the guy he was talking to. And I'm sitting outside of my car, got the bug on this little conversation. I know when it reaches a certain point, I'm to come in. And I did. Now, picture that in the movie, Pulp Fiction, where they open the briefcase. So I walked in, and at that time I was 100% bilingual. And they're sitting in the booth. I went to the cook side of the booth. I sat down. He doesn't know I'm coming. I gave him the hip. Speaking Spanish, move over. And I popped open my briefcase. And I said, you can have it one way or the other. I had it loaded with real US money and a Chrome 45 on top of it. And his eyes went. I closed the briefcase, got up and left. The idea was he would know that the person he was dealing with had the money to buy the drugs, so forth. And the deal did go down. We did get the drugs. So but it was fun because when I watched that movie several times, when they opened it out, I said, I did that before Quentin did. We learned a lot. And then I promoted to captain, which meant I took over the whole division up there of organized crime, the 5 major families, which Bonanno and Spliatro and a couple others lived in Tucson. And time passed. And finally, keep in mind, I'm writing everything down that I can keep. I didn't know why, but I found out afterwards when I retired, I could write books. And I got transferred to start a whole new division called the Special Services Division. And so I took over motor unit, helicopters, bombs, and K9. But it was hard work. Start with, you never ask an officer or talk to an officer who rides a motorcycle. Motorcycles, riding motors. They motorcycle, they know you don't know what you're talking about. So they ride motors. I had taken over a helicopter unit. We didn't have helicopters. But we had a MASDIC, big military air storage disposition center at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. You could buy a flyable helicopter for $1. So this is learning new administrative responsibilities, go to the airport, work contracts, buy a hangar, buy tarmac space and so forth. Then deal with the government, buy 3 helicopters. Technically, they're flyable, but they're really not. Have to truck them to the Tucson International Airport, take them all apart, throw away most of it. The idea is to build 1 helicopter out of 3. And it took a long time. And at the same time, we sent a couple of guys off to flight school, learned how to fly helicopters. It was also a prime time, guys getting out of the military, they were military helicopter pilots. And they were good pilots, so we're hiring them. So I'm learning a whole new administrative process. With motors, helicopter unit, had the bomb unit, and I was familiar with bombs from my military time. And the K9 unit, we had a large K9 unit. And there's a lot to learn about the dogs, care and feeding the dogs. One time we bought several dogs, we went to Germany and got them. The dogs don't understand English. So it's much easier for the canine handler to learn a couple words in German. And the dogs catch on pretty quickly. But all the time I'm learning. And as it turns out, when I retired, I said, well, I've got a lot of stuff here. So what are you gonna do with it? Well, of course, we were married, we had family. That's the size of our family now. But married life and having family and learning all new things about the world in which we operate that are not police related. And just enjoying family. I've risen in rank. I've retired as deputy chief, then chief here and then chief at Lubbock ISD. Interesting point is when I started there working for Dr. Mike Moses, for those of you who remember Dr. Moses. And when he hired me, I said, I know nothing about school district policing. He said, well, Tom, congratulations, because I don't either, but you're going to teach us both. And I did, and one of the first things I did, that's the old cop comes out of me, I went to all the Texas laws that would relate to schools, public schools, and the law. It is very specific. In Penal Code 3.13, who is a police officer? You know, there's all these definitions. Guess who is not mentioned? Public schools. They're not authorized to have police departments. Went back to Dr. Moses, told him that. There are already 14 departments in the state, Houston, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. Nobody had ever looked at a law book to see who's legally authorized to have police departments. School districts were not authorized. I gave that to Dr. Moses. He said, well, what are you gonna do about it? I don't know. This is what I'd like to, he said, fix it. So I put together a few people, men and women, and we served as a ad hoc legislative committee and spent a year, 1 session basically in Austin. Governor Ann Richards was a huge supporter. She was perfect for us and everything came together. So now school district police are legally police. At that time they were, but this was all in the learning process that eventually comes out in my books. So I retired. Now in Tucson, and this is, I know this is true among cops. I don't know about the other businesses, military. You get nicknames tagged on you, sometimes positive and sometimes not positive. And in Tucson, I've become known as a word merchant. And sometimes it was used in a very derogatory sense. Other times they'd say, we need a word merchant to fix this. And so I'd get the job. And then when we retire, we come here. Interesting enough, quite a few Lubbock cops already knew my tag, word merchant. So they've been talking, you know, who's this new guy coming to town, word merchant. But then Gwen and I both retired within a few months of each other. And I made a point one day of saying, you know, I've got all these stories in my brain. And I'm going to do something with them. So with her encouragement, I started writing books, the first of which was called The Prism. And since then, we've got out, I think we have 8 books right now out. And I say we, because it's a partnership. I jokingly call her the assistant author. That way, when we take a trip to go somewhere, it's tax deductible trip for the author and the assistant author. And so, but we have learned, I won't say learn the hard way, but we learned it pretty quickly. That you can Google everything. You really want to know what it's like, go spend a couple of weeks there. At least get a taste of it. So we have done it, we've traveled. If we're gonna have a book setting, we're gonna go there and spend a couple of weeks. And some are really nice, like Paris is nice, Scotland, Ireland are nice, and so a lot of good trips. Russia was interesting. I would say I liked Russia, but you wouldn't want to live there. But I did enjoy our time there. But we've been to Russia twice, and we have traveled coast to coast. So anywhere we're going to have a book setting, we go and we spend time. So Color of the Prism, all the Christy Cole books are set basically in the Sonoran and Chihuahua deserts. When I both always liked the desert. Sometimes we'd like a little more rain, but we love the desert. In fact, beautiful, even though some people would consider it very ugly. So then we come to the first published book, Color of the Prism. And this is where I start learning the hard way about publishing. So as you can see, there's 4 book covers. There's only one book. The book hasn't changed an iota. But publishers get bought up and eaten up like banks or drugstores, chains or something like that. So you have a contract here with publisher ABC, and then a year later, they've been bought out by publisher 123. And the new person, now called your publisher, they don't want your book the way it was. So take Color of the Prism there with that scrappy looking cover. And so we had to change the book cover. Then you also have to change the ISBN. So if you have a paper book, a hardback book, an ebook, and an audio book, those are 4 ISBN numbers. So every time you change publishers, you have 4 new ISBN numbers. It's a hassle, but if you're going to sell books, that's the world in which we live. So Color of the Prism was and is by far our best seller. And first decision I had to make with Color of the Prism was, how do I market it? I mean, I can write it. I'm the only guy on the cul-de-sac who knows about it. Nobody in the world knows about it. So how am I going to advertise it? And advertising is very expensive, extremely expensive. And I was operating on a budget of maybe $25. I wasn't going to advertise very much. And so doing a little homework and started thinking about the internet. And all of us have computers. We all know what spam is. And when because I do business on the computer, we probably get 200 to 300 spams a day, a lot. So I did not want to send out spam. So I created our own guidelines. I would send out every evening, I would send out 3 emails, only 3. I could send them to as many as 3 people in one email, if those 3 people had to know each other. And many of those emails were just directed to one person. So it's not very broad scale advertising, but it's pretty inexpensive. So just say for sake of discussion, 90 people a month were learning about Color of the Prism. Not very many. And then maybe a percentage, maybe 3 or 4% who actually buy the book. So the returns are very, very limited. But I kept it up and kept it up. That's my office there at home, which is staged because it's never that clean, but it was clean for that. But that's where I work, and that's where all the books come from. So my goal was, I'm going to work, I'm going to advertise via the internet. I'm be very target specific. I'm not just going to dump things out there. I'm not going to spam. I don't want anything to go in anybody's spam folder. I would going to have no more than 2, and I fudged on that, and up to 3 lines of written material in that email, so it didn't scare people off. I was trying to find individual cops who had websites and so forth. So even though I just sent out 3 emails, I might have spent 3 hours finding out where to send them. But I said I'm mainly a college student, also to various groups that I'd worked with or people where I had contacts, Police Executive Research Forum, which I had great success working with them as a chief and the deputy chief, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and of course, the routine cop to cop on the beat. Well, you never know what's going to happen when you send out an email. Start with hoping it's the right person. So on the right there, that's Sergeant Tim Halpin. He was a motor sergeant, not motorcycle, he was a motor sergeant, San Jose Police Department. And just by the luck of whatever, Tim got one of my emails. And you never know what lies ahead. So, hello, Hollywood. So Tim emails me, first going back and forth email, and then we're talking to each other. I mean, friends as friends could be electronically. It turns out, yes, Tim is a motor sergeant. That's why he got my email. He said his real income is coming out of Hollywood. He said he owns one or two airplanes, small aircraft, and he has all the sensitive camera equipment for shooting video from the air. He said, so, I rent myself and my plane and my cameras out. So I've got a lot of contacts. Would you like to get involved? Of course. And he said, okay, I'll see what I can do. Bye-bye. And shortly thereafter, we get an invitation in the mail, a very nice invitation to attend a business networking party at the home of whatever the man's name was, I've forgotten it now, a retired movie director. And I talked to Tim afterwards. He said, yeah, this guy does it maybe once or twice a year because he's retired, but he likes to stay in touch with people. So he puts on a party. So I said, well, Tim, I've got the invitation. And these are Tim's true words, not mine. Don't be offended. So now, Tom, I'm going to tell you about the party. It is a party. It's business network and it's serious business. Keep in mind, there are no drugs. There's no alcohol and no boobs. So this is hard business. And so you got an invitation, good luck. So who never thought Hollywood party, not even a martini. I mean, their strongest drink was a 7-Up on ice. So when I fly, get a hotel, nice hotel in Studio City, it's the hill, the Palisades, and so we ventured to take a trip to find a Mulholland Drive. If you've ever been up there, the streets don't make sense. They just go every which way. And it took us a while to find Mulholland Drive, but that is undoubtedly the most famously known street, residential street in Hollywood, in California, Mulholland Drive. So we're going to go to a business network party. And I'm not sure, but I think not the first house in front, it's got the big L-shaped pool, but the next house over with the semicircle pool, that's where we went. And so the party is going to be like from 1 to 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And so we leave probably about 12:20 or so to head up the hill. Luckily, we left early because there's no parking up there. Just park on the street. Good luck finding a place to park.
Oh, gosh.
So we parked and we walked back up and going up the driveway. We're going to go in through the garage. And there's a card table set up with 2 nice young ladies sitting there. Check, Mr. Nichols, we're so glad you're here. We're glad you made it. I should have taken a cue, but I didn't. That's nice, a little name tag and sister author's little name tag. And we go in, just go through the house, out by the pool deck. But it has an impact. You're out there and you're looking down, and that is Hollywood. There are the different movie studios. And these are all the movers and shakers from down there are up here for Sunday afternoon. So anyway, we helped ourselves to a nice, cool 7-Up. And very quickly I found out, so I always carry a lot of business cards. And people coming up and hand me their business card, we're chatting. They're carpenters, they build scenes, they're painters, they're gaffers, they're actors, they're this, that, and the other thing. Few directors, few producers. And it doesn't take long for I realizing Glenda's right with me. I said, Gwen, we are the receiving line. We're it. And about this time, this guy who I'd never met personally comes up. It's Tim. Hey, Chief, how are you? I said, oh, hi, Tim. What's going on? He said, well, it's your lucky day. There is a receiving line and you are the receiver. You're the only person here with anything for sale. Everybody else is here trying to buy. I said, really? Really? I said, yeah, and he just kind of disappeared into the crowd. And I stood there for 2 hours talking to people, and it was a receiving line. You swap business cards, shake hands, make eye contact, talk to each other for maybe a minute and go. And Gwen, very intelligent young lady, she's smart. She just keeps bringing me ice cold 7-Up. Sweat is running down my back. I cannot believe what we're doing. And it was fun, and it was also scary. I'd never done anything like that before. And the party, as they called it, went on. I don't think we ate a bite, just drank a lot of 7-Up. And at 3 o'clock, it was like, ding, ding, thank you everyone for being here. Leave. It's over.
Did you find the bathroom?
Yeah. We're gonna come to that. In fact, Mulholland Drive
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
is considered a classic mystery. It is set in that house. We've been in that bedroom that's in this movie, that bathroom.
Oh.
And in fact, when the fires were going on, and obviously we're very curious, I was on the computer and I tapped into the CAL FIRE website. The big 3-story house you can see in front with the pool, it was burning. The fire was coming uphill. Guess what the next house was? Our party house. This house on Mulholland Drive. And it went. Everything you see in that camera went in the fire.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was devastating. But anyway, go back to that Sunday. It's a wonderful Sunday. The party's over, ding, ding, everybody leave. And we got our car. As we're driving down the hill, we said, well, Tom, how'd it go? I said, well, I think we hit a home run. And we did go down and found a nice, expensive steakhouse, which is pretty easy to find in that neighborhood. And had a bottle of wine and a nice steak dinner. So a week, 10 days later, I'm working my office. And the secretary comes in and said, there's a Mr. Tarantino wants to talk to you. Okay. Well, I've got time for him. So anyway, this is Tony Tarantino, Quentin's father. Quentin is the very, very, very successful movie maker. A very, very, very wealthy man. Tony is his dad and he's not. But I do remember meeting Tony and talking with him. And so when we talked that day on the phone, his first thing is, do you want to make a movie out of that book? You know, he knew my answer. And so that started the paperwork process going. One thing that's very important about this meeting though, and Tony was in that line and I recall meeting him. Very important, all these people, and everybody was sincere, there was no BS going on. People were serious. There were 2 gentlemen about my age, they introduced themselves and they're from Universal Studios. And I always remember them saying, see that building? And down there is about a 10-story building, and that's Universal Studios. So that's where we work. And you're doing very well. You've got a good book, you've got a good story, and you're going to sell it. We're not going to buy it because that's not our genre right now. Another time, earlier or later, maybe so, but not now. Keep in mind, this is a tough business. In that building, as we speak, there are over 200 films canned in the vault. They'll never see the light of day. He said, that's the business we're in. And that's why things are so expensive too, because it takes a lot of money and you lose a lot of money at the same time. So anyway, I've always remembered that. So anyway, work with Tony and we work out contracts covering all those things you've seen before, music, games, the whole thing. And, he never made the movie. He had a $50 million budget. And even though I'm brand new to the business, as Tony, it's not a $50 million movie. And he said, Tom, we either do it right or we don't do it. I said, well, I can't argue with that. So anyway, I met with him. I learned a lot about the business with him. We met three different times in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and San Diego. And because of him and some of the publicity we got, one day I got a call from a police captain in New York City PD. That's a large department. They have more cops than most countries have armies. And he said, well, we kind of like your book, and would you be willing to come back, but we can't pay your expenses? Of course. And so went to New York City and stayed at a hotel, and started with, we got a tour of the first precinct, which is fun, but not fun. Because, you know, we were there at nighttime. Police stations are not neat and pretty at nighttime. I don't think Gwen enjoyed it when we were going back into jail, but you know, we got a tour of the first precinct and talked to cops about the book and so forth. Here's the sad note. Most of those people died in the fire at the towers. Because it's right across the street from the towers.
Oh.
So most of those people did not survive. But anyway, the next morning I got up and I went to their NYPD police studio, very nice. And we did a talk show, just kind of like Johnny Carson or these other people. You know, the host was this captain and 2 or 3 guests, and we talked, conversations about the book and where they could buy it, things like that. So, you know, it was a lot of fun. I'm sure we sold a few books from it, and but it's good exposure and good exposure for me to get the book out there, and good exposure for them to find out more about the book, and for more people who are watching TV to buy the book. So by and by, Tony is now dead. He died of natural causes, and he never made a great movie. He was always a lower level writer. But anyway, I continued writing, and right now I have 8 books out. And I enjoy writing. I enjoy police work, and that's why I blend the two into one. And I work very hard to make sure they're novels. And every once in a while, I get a little too close to the truth, and that can cause trouble. I've won quite a few awards, but one book, which I do not have here, it's called The Arrows of Allah. I do have it here. Yes, I have a couple of copies. Arrows of Allah. That book had a different name at the time. It's called The Axis Powers or something like that. And somebody said, who read the manuscript, because it was not published, they said, Tom, you need to go to Facebook and look up Arrows of Allah. This is true, and I did it. You couldn't do it today. I went to our Facebook page, Tommy Wynn Nichols, typed in Arrows of Allah, boom, there's their Islamic terrorist website. Holy cow, I didn't know you could do that.
Holy cow.
Actual beheadings taking place.
Oh.
They had several women on their knees. Now, we didn't see the beheading itself, but they were just weeping in their anguish. They'd been beaten up, and the men were behind them with power saws. And all this was on Facebook. And this was, you know, several years back. It's not there anymore. But I did not come up with the term Arrows of Allah. And there are some in the Muslim community are very dissatisfied with that. But it's a fact, Arrows of Allah are what the Muslim terrorists called their RPGs. They were the Arrows of Allah. And so I carried it as a book name. I had a little blowback, but nothing serious. But I did run into problems with it. And so serious problems. My computer kept slowing down. You see my little office there, little computer, nothing that you wouldn't have at your house. It kept getting slower and slower, pretty sure it's slower than the old AOL dial-up. It was really slow. And so I have a company, local company I work with, and I'd call them and back and forth, and finally I said, you need to bring it in, we need to look at it. And I did. And I just dropped it off, and nice guys, they're all like 60-year-old hippies, they really into computers, and So I left the computer, I'm going home. By the time I'm home, my cell phone's ringing. It's the guy from the computer shop. He said, Tom, you need to come back. What? He said, just need to come back. That's not very good. No. So 15 minutes later, I was back. And he knows what I do for a living. He knows everything about me. I was a cop, different things. He knows I write. He said, you have really stopped some people. He said, so here's who we're finding in your computer playing games right now. Start with the Internal Revenue Service. It's all over your computer. Oh, that's interesting. I wish I was making some money, but nevertheless. And then he said, I can't tell you who or what company or individual, but in Beijing, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Egypt, China, UAE, everybody's all over your computer. I left out part of the story, went back up. So now I'm writing, you know, and at the end of every day, you save your information, just keep redoing it every time that you're writing. Well, what I found out was at one point I was writing, whatever the scene was, I had no idea what it was now. I was going to write a scene and I had to go back maybe 40 or 50 pages where I had introduced the characters that are in this scene. So I go back and I find a recipe for lemon meringue pie. I don't write recipes for lemon meringue pie. Thought, what'll happen? So I delete it and go ahead about my stuff. And maybe a day or two later, I'm writing and I'm going back again to make sure I'm consistent on whatever it is I'm writing. I come across another recipe for lemon meringue pie. I'm stumped. I am totally stumped. So anyway, after I've taken it to the computer guy and we're swapping stories about what happened to my computer, and he's reeling off. He says, here's the people who are watching everything you do. And one of them, we don't know which one, is leaving their business card. Lemon meringue pie. Just to let you know we're watching you. I didn't like that. And so I was kind of in a fix. So the computer man, he saved everything that we thought was good. And then we took the hard drive out and smashed it with a hammer, and then we burned it. So I found everything I was writing, somebody was watching. So along with the computer guy, again, this 60-some-year-old hippie, figured out where it had come from, when it started, was that in writing Arrows of Allah is so true. I knew I was taking it right to the boundary line of being between truth and novel. And one of the things I asked Google as I was writing that book is I was going to have for the book's purpose, I was going to have a state party in the dining room of the US Embassy in Islamabad, where the book is set. So I asked Google anything. Guess what I got? Got the entire set of floor plans for the US Embassy in Islamabad. That shouldn't be there. And it shouldn't, it's probably not there now, but it was then. And then I was a cop, I'm curious. They typed in security staff. I'll get their pictures. All that's on the internet. And somebody a lot higher pay grade than me has really screwed up. I assume they fixed it. So I threw away that computer, burned it, smashed it, and have another computer and don't have any problems. But certainly my heart was pounding pretty strong there for a few days, knowing somebody we don't know who is in there doing, and we don't know what they're doing. So I had a good joke. You have to maintain a good sense of humor in our business. So I said, Gwen, for the next few days, why don't you go out and start the car for me? Yeah, a good, loving wife, maybe a little bit naive, so she starts car and doesn't blow up, so I can go about my business. But anyway, we've had an interesting time. And then very recently, again, it's one of these phone calls sitting there. tidy little messy office and receive a call from a man, identifies himself, and I assure you, I've done my background on him since then. He introduces himself. He's with the purchasing department at MGM. And he says, I'm interested in color the Prism. So we talked, he said, okay, I'm very interested. So he gave me the name of the guy I'd be working with in contracts with MGM. So again, we go back and forth on contracts, who gets what, who pays what, so forth. And so then I got a contract with MGM Prime for color the Prism. And then the guy from MGM calls me back. He said, you got 3 books in that series. We're not interested in the middle one, but we'd like the last one, the Russian. Yeah, hey, I'm game. You wanna buy it? Yeah, for sale. So anyway, they have a contract to make movies, and they were really going right on schedule. Click, 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 click. The verb was were. Almost 100% of the people who are involved in making that movie, producers and so forth, lived in Palisades or Altadena. Right now, he's facing charges. An unhappy Uber driver, supposedly he admitted setting the fire with a cigarette lighter. And all the people there in Altadena lost everything. And I mean everything. There are people who lived in an imaginary world. And I think their finances were also imaginary. And when it came time they had to pay the piper, they had no choice. They didn't have the money. So I still have a contract on paper with MGM. And so it's not dead, but I just say it's on life support.
No.
Now, the problem with that is what's on life support, nobody else is gonna touch it, not with a 10-foot pole. But you never know what's gonna happen. So a guy who has never said this to me, but I believe he used to be in the contract office at MGM, but he's not anymore. He called one day. He said, I'm familiar with contracts and so forth, so I don't want to mess with those books. But I would like to be your agent and I will represent you and we'll get going on the Christie Cole trilogy. Are you interested in making a movie? Hello, yeah. And then the contract, the conversation expanded because when I watch Netflix and Amazon movies. And so I proposed to this man who called after 2 or 3 phone calls, I'd be more interested in selling them to make a series, whether HBO, Netflix, it was something like that. Yeah, interesting. He said, I've got the same interest. He said, it's a lot harder to do. But one is hard, the other one's harder. But he said, if you're game, I'm game, let's do it. And so we worked out our common grounds. And so he now has the authority. He doesn't own the books. He is the agent who's trying to sell those books to a producer. Go back to that other Frank Capra and all those others, the Coen brothers. So he's trying to deal with those people. And so we're back to stage 1. And that's what we're doing right now. As we speak, that's what we're doing right now. Now, one of the things we have done with MGM and also with this agent is we have made what are called trailers. And you see previews that come in attractions. Well, these are a rough version of the previews that come in attractions. So when an agent is meeting with a producer, the agent has his song and dance, which I've provided in writing. And then he's going to show up to a 2-minute video, kind of a summary. And Susan, do you know how to start that video? Or whomever. So we have like 5 of these, but we only brought 1. So this is due as about 10 days ago.
the law. Now I break it to serve something darker. Justice isn't found in the light. It's made in the shadow.
So that's where we are right now. We have trailers made for 5 books. And we have an agent with 3 of them. We have MGM also already under contract with 2 of them. We don't know where they're gonna go. I'll always remember the 2 guys from Universal Studios. So they were so nice, and very pleasant, very professional. When we're out by the pool up there on Mulholland Drive. You got a good book, you're gonna do something with it. Just remember that building every day has at least 200 films will never see the light of day. Keep your hopes up and good luck. They went their way and we went our way, and now we're with OLLI. So if you have any questions, any comments, I'll try to answer. Gwen will try to answer.
Oh, how
Yes, sir.
wonderful.
A gaffer is an electrician. And the gaffer, actually, it's an old English term, but basically it's a head electrician on a movie set. Yes, thank you for that's a good question.
I wondered about that. I watched the credits, but I always wondered what that was.
Just think, yeah, every one of those people signed a contract. Yes,
So when did you get an agent? You'd written these books and then you got an agent, or you?
yes, yes. So dealing with agents is extremely difficult. dealing with publishers and studios directly is even more difficult. And I've dealt with some agents that would not even talk to me because they had to have a referral from another agent to them. I thought, give me a break.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it's just, when I started writing, I was about 70 years old. And I figure it takes me 2 years from the time I have the idea of a book to the time I hold it in my hand. I'm 85. And I don't think I'm gonna take on any more books. Now I'm just trying to take on movies, and that is true. And now, a good question that you asked, because the current agent who has these 3 books, he said, Tom, what you gotta do is you gotta write me a storyline for all 3 of them. Wait, I said, I've got a storyline for all 3, so I know that. That's not what I want. I want a storyline for all 3 books. Can you do it? Of course I can do it. Yeah, you can do it, sure. Have it to you in a couple days. I was really struggling. And I committed a mortal sin. I went to AI and I said, I need a summary of no over 500 words and I named the 3 books. I said, dude, done. I called the agent, I said, it's AI done. But I cleaned it up. Some of the words were not right. I cleaned it up. He said, don't care. So your story is not AI. I said, that's correct. And that is a contract you have to sign with publishers or directors about the use of AI and that you don't use it. And then I have the exception for spell check and Grammarly. But I don't use it for anything else, but I did use it for that storyline for three books. It was good. I couldn't believe it was good. So I'd hate to be a teacher now. Oh, yeah, yeah. Give me a summary of the Peloponnesian War in 2 pages. Here it is. Wouldn't have it. Comments, questions? Yes. Yes. You're
I
on.
wanted to ask you, did you actually go to that one place that was, I can't remember that, like Afghanistan or wherever it was?
Islamabad.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
been, not necessarily to all the cities, but we have been to the Middle East, we've been to Russia, we've been all over Europe, all over the United States. So if we have a book, we've maybe not been in that particular town, but other towns right there. And in some ways, I kind of kicked myself in the hind end. Of all the places in the world, why would I pick a place like Islamabad?
Yeah.
But in real life, it worked out that was very important, so I had to go with it. But for the story, but I would not go there in real life. But we did Russia twice. I love going to Russia. Don't want to live there, but a nice place to visit.
Yeah.
Yes, other question? Yeah,
What classification is your genre?
genre is a very good question. Genre is mystery / suspense, intrigue, thriller,
That's good.
something like that.
What was the last one?
When you sign a contract, is it for a period of time? All the time you're seeing somebody says, well, I changed agents.
Right, no, you
How does that work?
would have a contract, you're gonna have a time limit on it. And you also have a non-disclosure agreement. Don't discuss it with anybody else. Other than say, I've already got a contract. Yes, sir.
Michael Conley's been very successful in transporting his books into movies and video. Get any interaction with his people or himself on the experience?
Not at all. Not at all.
Will you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, say the question again loud and I'll repeat it.
Michael Conley's been very successful in taking his books to videos and to movies.
Right.
Wondered if you had any interaction with him who shared the experience.
Okay, so the question is are there other writers, successful writers that I've had contact with and maybe learned from and shared some knowledge with? And the answer is no, I really haven't. And basically part of that is I'm gonna say kind of, I have a wall there. And some of the authors that I do know, they're pretty good authors and they're successful authors, but everything they do is research based. And I'm not against that at all, because I'm also research, but I am primarily boots on the ground based. And that's what I like, and most authors are not that way, even though they are very, very successful. They make a lot of money. But thank you, good question. Yes,
Just from personal perspective, I think I told you this that night when we sat with you at the banquet, but, I had a book I read back in the 8th grade at Evans Junior High. And, been a dream of mine to make it into a movie for years. Do you consult on other people wanting to do what you do?
so the question is, when people come across a good book that either they wrote or knowledgeable of, do I cooperate with them, interact with them? And no, I don't. I specifically don't, because things get really itchy touchy in the contract process. Yes, ma'am.
But when you were saying people are watching your computer from these different countries and you
Right.
have to smash the hard drive, have you found any way to protect your computer so you don't have to periodically do that?
The question is, when people mess around in your computer and you've learned the hard way, what do you do to protect yourself? And my answer is, I try to use a good quality, but nevertheless retail available software and hardware to protect. But I also know that if you're in Yemen or you're in China and you want my computer, you're gonna come in. They've got so much ability and I'd caution you, be very, very careful on what you check on your computer. I've had 2 this week, and this is what, Thursday? One from Wells Fargo. It was as real looking as you could get. Something they need to do about our accounts. And it was a logical question. And they had phone number and email and everything that you would click on. And no. I called. They said, no, forward that email to us. It's not us. So it's a crook after all of your information. So we've had 2 this week. And that's high quality international scam. Anything else? Questions, comments? Yes.
On the trailers that we just saw,
Mhm.
now who makes those, Tom, and who are the people that are in them? Is this young woman gonna be in the movies, or do you just somebody doing the trailer?
Thank you for the question, because the first time I saw a trailer, I just barked. Called up whoever I was working with and barked and found out just will bark at a car passing by. Anyway, there's a small company, see, they would get their credits, though. They're a small company in Connecticut, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, in there. And they're all Eastern time zone, and they're the ones who are making these things. And they have files upon files upon files. You want a file of XYZ? Yeah, we got this, and this. And they just put them together. So they're the ones who do it. And I have talked to a couple times about things, like the name Gatica, Gatica, and they insist on pronouncing it Gatica. I said, no. No, I have really no interaction with them. It's all the agent and producer deal with them, and sometimes they will call and ask questions, and that's about it. Or vice versa. Jack.
You know, I'm sorry you've had such a dull life. It's amazing. I've known you for what, 7 or 8 years, and I learned more about you today. This is fabulous. You have lived a.
Well, thank you.
life.
Life has been exciting, and I will say this, and it's really not by design. It was just innate in me that when I would come home from work, and Gwen would say, you know, how's your day go? Good day. Another day at the office. I come home having, I handle cases where 5 dead people shot and torn to pieces in the house. People hanging in the school locker room. I should say, good day. We never talked work at home. So I get to talk work there because everything in there is so close to true. In a couple of places, maybe it's true, but I made it. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. And I do have books. only have a few. It's good to say it's hard to keep up with stock. I love that. So the books are $20, includes tax, and then $5 of that of each sale will go to OLLI.
Oh,
Very
wow.
nice.
They'll support OLLI.
Very nice.
Thank you all. Appreciate you.